Welcome back to Sparkle Boots Moto. Through all of these videos, one thing kept happening. You all had advice. Over 500 comments later, I wanted to know what are experienced riders trying to teach me. So I went back through all those comments looking for the advice that came up again and again. Well, here is what I learned from the comments. First of all, there was one thing a few people wanted to mention. Apparently, I had a habit. Gary Rogers N3Q said, rolling through stop signs seems to be the easy way, but at some point you will get into a situation where you realize all of a sudden you have to stop. So again and again I heard, come to a complete stop at stop signs and lights. What I'm doing is a rolling stop. You roll through the flashing red. It was RJUT3YU who said, stop rolling turns. Use all of them to practice really stopping, putting one foot down and then proceeding assertively and with pace. Did they all have a point here? Yes. Was I kind of shortcutting the stops a little bit? Yes. The real thing behind that is why I did it. And I did it because I was nervous, because I was afraid I would stall, that I would get flustered if I stalled it, and then I would struggle even more. And what RJUT3YU said about use them to practice really stopping made so much sense, because I should have taken that opportunity, like forced myself to make sure both feet went down at every stop, just so I practiced that more. And as other people said, find an empty parking lot and practice complete stops. Also, it was Mark Cantrell 6668 who said, practice what you are afraid of, the stop sign. And that's 100% correct. I should have gone and just practiced stop and go, stop and go, stop and go until I could do it without fail every time. And instead I was nervous and I kept kind of shortcutting, and I should not have. The things that you are most nervous about are probably the things you should be practicing all the time. Yes, you were all right. Yes, that was good advice. I should not have been doing that. I should have taken that as an opportunity to work on that and get better. Another one that kept coming up in the comments was to stop looking down. I heard I needed to be looking down the road, not looking down at the dash. I was looking at my nav too often when I should be focused on the road, and I needed to look at that dash cluster as little as possible. Two reasons behind why I looked at the dash so much. First off was I had my phone for navigation in the tank bag. It was terrible placement. Didn't like that. Did not like looking down at the navigation anyway. Recognized that was a bad spot for that. But the other one was because as a brand new rider, I struggled to know what gear I was in all the time. So I would look down at the dash to see what the number on the dash said for what gear I was in before a downshifting. And that's not great. Again, that's something that needs practice, to just pay attention in your mind all the time. Of course, when you're new, you're paying attention to so many things you're not used to paying attention to. In my car, that's a stick shift, I don't think about it. It just happens. And I was not there with the motorcycle yet. Another thing that would have been good for me to practice, to go in a parking lot, just practice shifting and paying attention and feeling how the bike feels in the different gears, so I could learn it in my mind. And it's one of those things, you do it enough, you just learn it without even trying. But it would have been nice to learn that more quickly, to keep my eyes more focused on the road. So another great piece of advice from the comments. Next up, I got some great advice for turns. XT1000 told me never use your front brake at slow speeds with your handlebars turned, which is true. You do learn that in the class, but it's one of those things you really need to remember all the time, that you don't just grab it or grab too much of it in a place that's not a good choice. I was also heard a story from Kidla Tazul, sorry if I'm mispronouncing the usernames, who'd been riding in Thailand, and all this, steep hills and everything, hairpin turn, slippery pavement, and fixated on the ground in front of them, and had to think through what they were taught, which is look through the turn. Don't look down, look through the turn. And said that changed everything for their ride, that they were able then to enjoy the beautiful roads and scenery. So it's a better way to ride, and you can enjoy it a little more too if you're looking through your turns instead of down at the ground in front of you. Copper Top Cruiser, who has left some great comments on my channel, said speed is your friend, especially on the turns. Make sure you always have power to your back wheel. If you hold your clutch in while you turn, that means you're constantly slowing, and if you slow too much, you'll tip or stall. And that's 100% accurate for how I was riding as a brand new rider. I was very slow in the turns, and it is the momentum of the bike that keeps it upright. You've got to keep going so you don't fall over. So that's very good advice. Make sure you do accelerate at the right moment through the turn. Do not slow down too much. Nobody wants to tip over in the turn. So great advice on turning from the comments.
Next bit of advice I heard a lot was about practicing. First comment here comes from Fred J2N, who describes himself as a salty old rider. And I'm going to tell you, if you get advice from a salty old rider, it's a good idea to listen. He said, practice in empty parking lots, learning how to come to a complete stop, U-turns, and emergency stops. Practice and practice more. MN Street Rider G71, a lot easier and safer to practice in a parking lot. I still do it regularly, like it's stretching before working out. That is a great way to describe it, that it's just something you need to get in the habit of doing before you go for a ride. Get out there, get accustomed to the bike again, practice a few, fast maneuvers, whether that's braking or swerving or U-turns or whatever you need to work on. Just get yourself comfortable with the bike, and if you do it every time, you'll have a safer ride and you'll be a better rider. I love that idea of it being like stretching before working out. I Ride Alone S81 said, it could help if you map out a short, maybe 3 to 5 mile route somewhere you're familiar with, ride only that route so you can think less about where you're going and more about the mechanics of riding. That's an interesting idea I had never thought of. Give yourself a familiar route, one you can do all the time. You don't even have to think about it. Then you're not thinking about where you're going or how to get there. All you're thinking about is your riding skills and building those and learning to be a better rider. It's a great way to take off some of that extra pressure when you need to be focused on learning to be a better rider. So really great advice on practicing and new ideas for how to practice and why to practice. So love that advice. Some more great advice I got was about starting on an incline. That for me is hard on a motorcycle. Most of my cars have been stick shifts and I can do it in a car without even thinking, but the motorcycle is different. You've got front brake, you've got rear brake, how much gas, how much clutch. It's just a little bit different on a motorcycle and intimidating, particularly if there's traffic around. So I was told find a hill area with no one around so you can practice starting and stopping on an incline. It would be a nice idea somewhere safe where you can do it and not have to worry about traffic or anything like that. Charles Aloha 9232 said, load the throttle to 4,000 and slowly let up on the clutch with the rear brake on. When it starts moving, release the brake. That's a nice idea that you're kind of holding it in place with the brake until you're ready to go. Emoji Man 4560 said to start on an incline, hold your brake either the front or the rear, ease out on the clutch until you hear the RPMs lower, then release the brake, and the clutch will now hold you from rolling back, so using that clutch for the control there. And then Copper Top Cruiser said, for anyone having troubles with stalling, it's helpful to know it's not a balancing act. And this isn't necessarily just for on a hill, this is for anywhere. You don't need an exact clutch to throttle ratio. You just need enough gas, so give it a bunch. Then ease off the clutch. The clutch is your controller. The throttle is just a switch you turn on. That is, to me, the best description of what you should do I've ever heard. That was so helpful for me, that I can just give it all kinds of throttle. It doesn't matter. And just control it with the clutch. Like don't just dump the clutch, but that way, for me, when I'm stalling, I'm not giving it quite enough gas. I can give it all the gas I want. It doesn't matter. I can rev it way up if I feel like it, as long as I'm controlling that clutch and letting the clutch out slowly. It's not going to just jump and take off with only a little bit of clutch. That has been so helpful for me to not stall, particularly on incline. So I love that technique. I have a few times maybe embarrassed myself by revving it more than I should have, but I didn't stall it, did I? So I love that piece of advice. That is just a small collection of the advice I've gotten on my channel. I do love hearing it. I love to keep learning and getting better at this. When I started this channel, I thought it was documenting my journey, but looking back now, it turns out that all of you became part of it, and I do love that about having this channel. So thank you everyone who commented, and special shout out to those that I quoted. I hope this helps some other new riders out there the way it's been helpful for me. Ride safe everyone, and thanks for watching.